The story starts with the death of a diamond tycoon, Rungroj Thevasatit Paisarn, after he falls off the balcony of his bedroom. The funeral ceremony is attended by his family, including his two sons, Fupat and Mavan. Also, there is a widow of Rungroj named Kaimuk sitting in the front line. Maven's wife comes to her and says that this seat is reserved for only family members, indicating that Kaimuk should go and sit somewhere else. Being Rungroj's older son, Fupat gives a speech of praise for his father and promises to take over the family business that his father was so fond of. He has tears in his eyes and looks very sad at the death of his father. The ex-family maid Kaimuk gets upset by the comment and leaves the funeral home. The episode then takes a flashback to the day of Rungroj's birthday. Kaimuk watches as Phupat's wife, Pacha, prepares for the dinner party to celebrate Rungroj's birthday. Pacha scolds her daughter, Kita, for yelling at the maids. Meanwhile, Maven's wife, Araya, welcomes their son, Shutter, who has flown in from New York for his grandfather's birthday. Kaimuk then goes to Rungroj's office, where he takes his evening tea. There, Phupat and Maven are trying to convince Rungroj to sign a deal with their rival company, but Rungroj denies his son's suggestion. They both try hard to take their father by their side, but Rungroj is a man of strong nerves and a foreseeing personality. He doesn't want to sign this deal. So Rungroj asks Kaimuk for her opinion on the issue. Kaimuk says that they should not sign the deal in haste, and they should wait for the appropriate time. Rungroj appraises this advice and even asks his sons to learn something from this maid. After Phupat and Mavan leave, Rungroj tells Kaimuk that she will have a much better future. That evening, Kaimuk gets Rungroj ready for the dinner party. Both Phupat and Mavan try to impress their father with expensive gifts. Marvin has given him the President Rolex, one of the costliest watches in the world, which Rungroj always wanted. Phupat gives him the rarest species of a tree, which he has gotten with much difficulty just for his father. Though they try their best to impress their father, Rungroj tells them that Kaimuk has given him the biggest gift he could ask for. Then Rungroj stands up and announces to his family and friends that he has decided to marry Kaimuk, which leaves everyone at the table shocked. Kaimuk is the maid at their family, but she has now made her place in the heart of Rungroj. Then Rungroj signs the marriage license at the dinner table and gifts Kaimuk the diamond necklace that belonged to his late ex-wife. Phupat gets upset when he sees his late mother's necklace on Kaimuk. That night, Rungroj takes Kaimuk to his room, and Mavan follows after them. He suggests that Rungroj should go on a honeymoon with Kaimuk and offers to manage the business in his absence. Rungroj mocks his son and states that he would rather have a servant take over the business in his absence instead of Mavan. After that, Kaimuk tells Rungroj that she is scared of Phupat and Mavan, but Rungroj assures Kaimuk that she is safe now, as being his wife will protect her. He also asks Kaimuk to leave the servant quarters and move into his room. The newlywed couple is interrupted by Phupat, who asks to speak to Rungroj privately. Rungroj gets upset with Phupat for interrupting. Phupat is also angry at his father for giving his mother's necklace to a maid, so Rungroj tells his son that he can do as he pleases with the necklace, because it's his property and his wife died a long time ago. Hearing all this, Phupat goes to his room and abuses some substances and gets high. He could not do anything to his father. That's why he has the only choice left to escape the situation by using drugs himself. Later that night, Maven rushes to Rungroj's room to talk to him, but cannot enter his room as it is locked from the inside. The episode ends with Kaimuk returning to the main house from the servant quarters, where she finds Rungroj's dead body lying on the floor. The episode then moves back to the night of Rungroj's funeral, where Kaimuk is standing depressed, thinking about her dead husband. She is going to have a rough life ahead now. In the meantime, Maven asks to meet Kaimuk in private and drives her in his car to a distant place. There, he offers her some money, asking her to leave the house. But Kaimuk refuses the offer, which leads Maven to drop her off in the middle of nowhere in the pouring rain. After reaching back to the house, Kaimuk tries to tell the cops that Rungroj was murdered, but the cops refuse to believe her, calling the businessman's death an accident. The following morning, Kaimuk is getting ready for her first breakfast with her new family as the late Rungroj's wife. She sits at the table with the rest of the Thevasatit Paisarn family. There, Maven asks his son Shutter to prepare for the upcoming polo match against their company, Theva Gem's biggest rival. When the maid serves Kaimuk her food, Shutter and Kita are disgusted with Kaimuk's presence at the table and leave. Kaimuk tries to be nonchalant but finds a piece of hair in her food and gets upset. Seeing this, Araya makes a scene and gathers all the servants. She tries to punish the maid who prepared Kaimuk's meal by pouring the curry on her. However, Kaimuk stops Araya from doing this as she doesn't want any punishment for that maid. Pacha intervenes and tells Kaimuk that the hair found in the soup is quite similar to Araya's hair. Here, Kaimuk realizes that Araya was trying to make things difficult for her on purpose. At the same time, on the company office, Phupat tries to convince the members of Theva Gems to make him the sole executive of the company. When Maven comes to the office, he learns about this and stops the board of trustees from voting. The brothers argue about who is more deserving of the company, but the truth is that they both are not worthy of this legacy. Back at the Theva Sadat Paisarn house, Kaimuk is in Rungroj's room when a fellow maid named B shows up. B tells Kaimuk that she is not safe living in this house because Rungroj's family hates her. But still, Kaimuk wants to stay there as she wants to unveil the culprits behind the death of Rungroj. Just then, Araya asks to meet Kaimuk and invites her to a charity event as Rungroj's wife. Araya tells Kaimuk that she will make sure she is dressed well for the event and takes her to get a custom outfit made for the night through a designer. That evening, the housemaids are watching a show featuring Araya as an actress. Caillou, the maid that Maven is hooking up with, shows up there and wears one of Araya's dresses. Caillou drinks some wine at the bar inside the house but ends up throwing up the alcohol. A flashback shows Caillou's boyfriend Tian, introducing her to Maven and having her join the Thevasadat Paisarn house as a maid. Tian was already working for the billionaire family as their driver. There, Maven looks at Caillou lustfully and allows her to take up the job as a maid. Back in the present, Maven meets the family lawyer, Crit, and tries to bribe him to change Rungroj's will. He asks Crit to name him as the sole beneficiary of Rungroj's will, but the lawyer refuses and even declines the diamonds offered to him as bribe. Seeing this, Maven is upset and calls Tian, giving him some orders. Back in the house, Maven is getting intimidated with Caillou, and his mood is spoiled by Crit's response. Further adding to his frustration, Caillou tells him that she is pregnant, and the baby is of Maven's. Maven gets upset with Caillou at this news and assaults her, asking her to abort the child immediately. Caillou begs him to keep the child, but Maven doesn't listen to her. Later, Caillou meets Tien and tells him the whole situation. Sensing the severity of the matter, Tien tells her that he is willing to take responsibility for the child. Meanwhile, Kaimuk tries to look into the CTV footage from the night of Rungroj's death. She learns that the footage from the cameras outside Rungroj's room and the balcony was deleted. Later that evening, Kaimuk shows up at the black tie charity event in a red gown. She is embarrassed to see that everyone, including Araya, the rest of the guests, and the members of the Thevasadat Paisarn family, are dressed in black and white. Kaimuk gets upset when she learns that Araya has tricked her and made her wear this red gown. After some time, she becomes speechless when the host calls her on stage to give a speech as Rungroj's wife. Due to her embarrassment at the event, she could not utter a word from her mouth, creating an uncomfortable environment at the event. So, Araya comes on the stage and gives the speech, further mocking Kaimuk's illiteracy. Then, she gives an emotional speech in honor of Rungroj. Phupat feels sidelined by the gesture, as he has prepared a speech for the event, but hasn't been invited to the stage. Later, at the event, Maven shows Crit a video of his daughter, Amy, doing drugs at a club. He blackmails Crit into changing up Rungroj's will as per his terms. Otherwise, his daughter would not be safe. At the same time, Kaimuk cries in the bathroom as Tien takes Caillou to the abortion center. He could not bear the pressure from Maven and had to abort the child. That night, Kaimuk takes back her job as a maid and tells Araya she does not want to be a part of the Thevasadat Paisarn family anymore. That's the thing which Araya wanted to hear from Kaimuk, so she embarrasses Kaimuk by placing her foot on Kaimuk's head, treating her like a dog. In the next scene, Kita is displaying the outfit she has designed to her photographers and friends, Dom and Abel. Dom suggests that Kita's maid, B, pose as the model so they can take photos of the outfit. B hesitates, but then she has to follow the order. She poses in the dress and looks very beautiful as Abel and Dom praise her, which upsets Kita. So she approaches her and embarrasses B by asking her to change the dress in front of them. When B doesn't comply with her order, Kita forcefully takes B's dress off her body, making her naked in front of her friends. Kita even asks Dom to take a photo of B as she is naked. B is embarrassed as Abel gives her his jacket to cover up. Later that evening, B bathes Kita's dog when she gets a call from her sister. B's sister tells her that they need more money for their mother's treatment. She offers to get a job, but B asks her sister to continue her studies, and she will arrange the money for the treatment. Just then, Kita shows up again in the room and assaults B for talking on the phone during work hours. She asks B to finish designing the outfits for her collection after the bath of her dog. Meanwhile, the head maid, Yupin, asks Kaimuk to clean the storeroom as she is back at her job as a maid after spending some days as Rungroj's ex-wife. Now, she doesn't sit with the family members at the dining table. Instead, she serves the food, and also, her maid's outfit is back. When she goes to clean the storeroom, she finds a butterfly that Rungroj had collected for her. A flashback takes Kaimuk to the night Rungroj had asked to marry her. Kaimuk recalls storing a dead butterfly for Rungroj's collection when the businessman had asked to marry her. Back to the present day when Kita is leaving for a party at the nightclub. Padcha tells Kita that Phupat is adamant about sending her to France, while Kita wants to go to New York for her studies. At the club where Kita is with her friends, Shutter shows up. It looks like Kita and Shutter are in a secret relationship because Kita gets jealous when a girl gets close to Shutter. After the party, Shutter's driver, Joke, drives Kita and Shutter back home. While Joke is driving at the front, Kita and Shutter kiss each other and make up in the back seat, confirming the suspected secret relationship between them. The next day, the members of the Thevasatit Paisarn family gather together to read Rungroj's will. Krit has come to their house to read the will. Araya asks Kaimuk to stay there and listen to the will too. Then, Krit reads out that Rungroj had left a 10% stake in Theva Gems for Padcha and 15% for Araya, respectively. He adds that Rungroj left a 30% stake in the company in Phupat's name, while leaving 45% of the Theva Gems stake in Mavin, naming him as the heir of the billionaire company. Everyone is shocked to hear that Rungroj didn't leave any of his wealth for Kaimuk. Meanwhile, Phupat gets irritated by the will as his share is very less in the company, though he is the elder son of Rungroj. He refuses to accept the decision and tells Krit that he will have Rungroj's will investigated. On the other hand, Araya and Mavin celebrate their victory. Araya even taunts Kaimuk, saying that she has nothing left to see for in this house, as Rungroj had not considered her giving any of his wealth. That night, Kaimuk shows up to meet Phupat in Padcha's room. She returns his late mother's necklace to Phupat and talks to him about Rungroj's death. Kaimuk tells Phupat that Mavin was the last person to see Rungroj alive. She saw Mavin coming out of Rungroj's room in anger. She claims that Mavin had also threatened to kill her and states that she is worried Mavin had killed Rungroj. However, Phupat refuses to believe Kaimuk because she does not have any evidence against Mavin. But Kaimuk promises to find some evidence against Mavin and then show up again with proof. She is trying to find the CCTV footage of that night, which is missing from the records at the time. That night, Kaimuk and B sit outside the servants' quarters. Seeing her depressed condition, B tries to cheer Kaimuk up. After that, the two maids have some drinks in B's quarters and chat about the collection of dresses that B was working on for Kita. Just then, Kaimuk learns that B's laptop has the video files from the camera on Kita's dog's collar. Kaimuk is shocked to see the footage from the night of Rungroj's death. It was Shutter coming out of the surveillance room just after the death of Rungroj, so it must be Shutter who had stolen the footage from that room. The next morning, when Phupat comes to the company building, he is denied into his old office. His access card is not working because now Mavin is in charge of the company, and he is making all the decisions. Phupat goes to meet Mavin, who tells him that he has taken his brother down from the company's board of executives. Hearing this, Phupat is pissed, but Mavin has no mercy in his heart for his brother. That night, Dom and Abel find B drawing up the outfit designs for Kita. Kita overhears her friends mocking her and rushes to meet Shutter in the hope of getting a sigh of relief and love. She asks Shutter to take her away from this cruel world. However, Shutter asks Kita to give him some time so they can move to New York together. Kita then goes back to her studio and punches B by sticking her fingers inside a sewing machine. She is angry at her for interfering with her designs. Kita thinks that B wants to claim Kita's designs as hers, and that's why Kita gives her such punishment. After that, B runs out of the house in pain, taking her injured fingers, and finds Joke there. Seeing this, Joke rushes B to the hospital to treat her bleeding hand. The following evening, Mavin invites his family and friends to celebrate his presidency of Theva Gems. Mavin meets Shutter before the party and hugs him, apologizing to him for the years he hadn't been there for him. At the party, Kaimuk is back serving drinks as a maid, and Araya tries to embarrass her even in front of the guests. She asks her to catch a new billionaire, as there are many at the party. When a guest approaches Kita, asking why she is working as a maid here as she is the wife of late Rungroj, Araya replies that Kaimuk could not fit in their family, and she is more comfortable in the role of maid. Meanwhile, Mavin shocks the guests with a diamond shower on his entry to the stage. Everyone bows down to gather the diamonds, but Fupat stands there looking at Maven with angry eyes. However, after some time, Fupat gives a speech for the success of his younger brother, but he is just pretending to be happy, and in reality, he wants all the wealth for himself, sidelining his brother. After that, the audience watches the video of Thiva Gems marketing, portraying Maven as the star of the company. Just then, the marketing video is interrupted, and the video of Shutter and Kita getting intimidated plays in front of the audience. It's a live video and streaming straight from Kita's studio at that time. Seeing this, Araya passes out suddenly, and Maven tries to stop the video, but Fupat rushes to Kita's studio and finds her in an intimate position with her cousin. Fupat gets angry seeing this and beats Shutter up, but Patcha stops him from beating her daughter as Shutter leaves. Outside the studio, Maven finds Shutter and yells at him for ruining his future as the president of Thiva Gems. Shutter also doesn't stay behind and tells his father that he should be grateful for Shutter, as he hid the CCTV footage of him killing Rungroj. The father is more evil than the son in this family. In the meantime, in Shutter's room, Kaimuk finds the CCTV footage Shutter was hiding. When Shutter goes to his room to look for the CD with the video, he can't find it there. He storms off the house in his car angrily, while Maven sends Tien to bring Shutter back home. However, a biker is chasing the car of Shutter. The biker then blocks the way for Shutter on the road and forces him to get out of his car. After that, the biker beats Shutter to a pulp and leaves him to die in the middle of the street alone. On the other hand, back at the house, Padja is disgusted when Kita tells her parents that she loves Shutter. In a flashback from a few years ago, we see Shutter driving his car drunk. He ended up killing a guy on the street by crashing his car into that man. But as he was afraid of his father and future imprisonment, he pinned the blame on his driver. Joke. Back to the present where Shutter is in critical condition due to the severe trauma to his rib. The doctors tell Maven and Araya that Shutter's heart isn't functioning normally, and he needs a new heart transplant, which stresses them out. Back at home, Patcha offers to use her father's connections to treat Shutter and get him a new heart, but Fupat disagrees with this idea. Fupat asks Patcha to let Shutter suffer because of the embarrassment caused by his affair with Kita. Their family is being trolled on the internet due to that affair. Meanwhile, Kita throws a fit and asks to visit Shutter at the hospital, but Fupat forbids her. Kita fights with her parents, saying that they never loved her. Shutter is the only person in the world who really cares for her, and when he is in pretty bad condition, the parents of Kita are not letting her go to the hospital. Padcha also asks Fupat to try to understand Kita's emotions, but he shuts her down. Meanwhile, Kaimuk asks B if she was the one who leaked the video of Kita and Shutter hooking up, but B does not give a clear response to her. Later that day, Kaimuk takes the CCTV footage of Maven entering Rungroj's room before his death to Fupat. Now Fupat finally believes Kaimuk and concludes that Maven had planned Rungroj's death. He now intends to use that footage against Maven and get his share of the company for himself. The following day, Fupat takes the footage to the cops and asks them to reinvestigate the case. Meanwhile, Kaimuk is unable to find B anywhere in the bungalow. When she asks Yupin about B, she learns that B has been fired from the job due to a mistake she has made. Then Yupin tells the maids that the cops were at the house to reinvestigate the case and asks them to cooperate with the investigation. After that, the cops interrogate the maids one by one and learn about Kaimuk's recent marriage to Rungroj. Kaimuk is also questioned about the incident, and she tells the cops how she had asked the detectives on the case to suspect murder. Later, the cop tells Fupat that there is enough evidence against Maven and waits for him to return from the hospital before questioning him. However, the cops get a call from a superior who asks them to call off the investigation. Fupat is shocked to see the cops walking off without arresting Maven. Indeed, Maven has deep connections, and he knows how to protect himself. Later that night, Pacha consoles Kaimuk, who is upset about how Maven got away with his crime because of his wealth. Pacha also praises Kaimuk for taking care of Rungroj's garden after his death because it was very dear to the late billionaire. The next morning, When Phupat reaches the office, he learns that Maven had fired him from the company for going to the cops. His whole stuff is out of the office, though his executive position had also gone earlier. Now he is not even a part of the company. Phupat also learns that the cops are no longer going to investigate the case and have handed over the CCTV footage to their superior, which means that the evidence is also gone now. Meanwhile, Kai-mook gets confused when she doesn't get any response from B, even after calling her multiple times. So she shows up at B's house and learns that B hasn't returned home in months. Hearing this, Kai-mook gets worried for B's safety. That night, Jok is discharged from the hospital as he was also injured for trying to save Shutter from the biker. Maven picks him up in his car. Then he asks Tien to drive him and Jok to the bridge. There they stop, and Maven asks Tien to push Jok off the bridge. He has the information that Jok is the real biker who beat his son Shutter. However, Tien confesses to beating Shutter up because of what Maven did to Caillou. He was also angry at Maven for forcing Caillou to abort her child. By knowing this, Maven threatens to kill Jok and asks him to push Tien off the bridge now. Jok refuses to push his brother off the bridge, but Tien jumps off himself to save Jok. On the other hand, B goes back to the house and finds the maids, seeing a video of B being held hostage in a cage as she begs to be freed. She is being kept in that cage as an animal for an unknown mistake she made earlier. Now, the video is being played in front of all the other maids as a warning that if she does anything wrong in the future, this will be the response from their masters. Again, we see a flashback of Marvin and Phupat from when they were younger. A fight broke out between the two brothers as they're playing, and Phupat told Rungroj that Marvin had been cheating. However, Rungroj punished both his sons and asked them to find a better way to resolve their conflicts other than fighting. Back to the present day, as Maven tells Phupat that he should move out of the family house too, as he was conspiring with cops to get Maven arrested. So Maven says that he can't let a person stay in his house who conspires about him behind his back. Just then, Araya asks Maven to accompany her to the hospital to meet Shutter, who is still in critical condition. On the phone, Padshah tells Kita that Shutter is up for a heart transplant. Kita, who is now in New York for her fashion course, tells her mother that she is worried about Shutter's health. Right then, Phupat comes there and catches Padshah talking to Kita on the phone about Shutter. Padshah thinks that Phupat will reprimand her for informing Kita about Shutter's health, but Phupat asks Padshah to use his father's connections to help Shutter get a heart transplant. He also tells Padshah that he wants to blackmail Araya into giving him 10% of her stakes in Thiva Gems in return for that heart transplant. In this way, he could have a total of 50% stake in the company and become the president. Then he will not have to get out of the house either. Kita also listens to all this on the video call when her father offers to use the critical condition of Shutter as a business deal. Meanwhile, Kai-mook tries to turn off the TV in the servant quarters to stop seeing B in a cage continuously. However, Yupin comes there and turns the TV on again, telling Kai-mook that B is suffering because she did something wrong. Yupin adds that Maven wants the other maids to see this to keep them in line. That night, Caillou asks Jok where Tien is and breaks down when Jok does not respond to her. Caillou starts sobbing when she realizes that Tien is no more. Seeing this, Jok hugs her in order to comfort her in this painful situation. The next day, Padshah meets Araya and offers to help with Shutter's heart transplant in exchange for her shares in Thiva Gems. Araya becomes happy and agrees with the deal without hesitation. She even hugs Padshah for thanking her. Meanwhile, B is sent back to the servants' quarters after her torture session, and Kai-mook takes care of her. Later that night, Maven calls Kai-mook to his room and tries to embarrass her by taking a picture up her skirt. He has the intimate pictures of Kai-mook, which Rungroj taken earlier. He tells Kai-mook that she, as well as the other maids of the house, are his property and asks Kai-mook to act like it. The following day, Maven asks Yupin to get all the maids and manservants, including Kai-mook, B, Caillou, and Jok, to prepare for an event planned by Maven. The event is very special for Maven, and that's why he wants everyone to work on it with dedication and hard work. All the works are distributed among the servants. On the other hand, in the hospital, Araya signs a 10% stake away from Phupat after Shutter finds a successful donor, thanks to Padshah's help. Then Padshah takes the documents to Phupat and asks him to remember his promise to her, which we don't know yet. After that, the couple makes it back home and meets Maven at the entrance, who thanks Padshah for her help with Shutter's surgery. However, Phupat tells Maven that he is taking over the company from now on because he has more shares. But to Phupat's surprise, Maven reveals that he has already taken most of Araya's shares. Now, Phupat only has 1% extra shares, which will never be enough to give him the presidency. Maven mocks Phupat for making such a mistake. Hearing all this, Phupat gets upset and asks Pacha to stop the heart transplant, but it's too late now. The following day is the day of the yacht party, during which Maven tries to entertain a business partner named Carlos. After some time, Phupat comes there when Maven gets distracted in the water. Now Phupat entertains Carlos with his favorite alcohol. When Maven comes back to the yacht, Phupat tries to blackmail him by threatening to sabotage his deal with Carlos. On the other hand, Joke and Kaimuk are together planning something big, but Joke is worried if he will be able to complete his task or not. That evening, Phupat, Maven, and Carlos are playing poker when Kaimuk drops Maven's drink at the table. Carlos notices Kaimuk and presents his interest in her. Maven suggests that they make the game interesting and bids Kaimuk. Eventually, Carlos wins the game against both brothers and takes Kaimuk to his room by force, where he forcefully assaults her. After that, Phupat, Maven, and Joke are seen taking the boat back home. But the boat suddenly explodes and bursts into flames. Everyone back at the yacht is shocked to see the flames rising high in the sky. A few minutes back in the story, Maven and Phupat go back home on a boat with Joke. Though Maven had to go alone on that boat, Phupat joins him, saying that Maven is too drunk, and that's why he is coming with him. After some time, in the middle of the water, Maven starts passing out after drinking the wine that Joke offers him. Then, Joke tries to kill a semi-conscious Maven by throwing him into the water, but he fails to do so because of his anxiousness. Phupat is watching all this quietly. Just then, Phupat stands up and blames Maven for killing their father, and then pushes him off the boat. Phupat asks Joke to light the boat on fire as per their plan, and jumps into the water. Joke takes a life-saving jacket and sets the boat ablaze before jumping into the water himself. Meanwhile, Carlos watches the boat get set on fire from his sea-facing hotel room, and Kaimuk sneaks out of the room. She runs to meet B and Caillou as Yupin rushes around, calling the police. After some time, the rescue team saves Phupat and Joke, but cannot find Maven. Phupat continuously pretends to be worried about his mother, and he asks the rescue team as soon as possible. After a few minutes, the rescue team announced that Maven was found alive underwater. Caillou, B, and Kaimuk are worried for Joke now, because if Maven lives, then he will definitely kill Joke. So, Kaimuk asks Phupat to do something, as Maven would kill them for what they had done. A flashback shows Phupat conspiring with Maven's murder with Kaimuk, who takes the help of the other servants to complete this task. Back in the present, Phupat runs to the rescue team carrying his brother to the nearest clinic. There he pays the rescue operators a bribe and asks them to take Maven to the big hospital, which is a long distance away from the city. So, despite Maven's critical condition, the rescue team took him to the city hospital. On the ride to the hospital, Phupat thinks about his childhood and his fond memories with Maven. However, Phupat also recalls how badly Maven treated him all this time, from his childhood to adulthood. In the present, Maven ends up dying in the ambulance before they can make it to the hospital. During Maven's funeral, Phupat gives a speech of praise for his younger brother and states that he will be taking over Theva Gems after his brother's untimely demise. Araya is also there weeping in deep pain on losing her husband. The following day, Phupat announced his presidency over Theva Gems in front of all the stakeholders. He even throws out all the stuff of his brother and father from the main office of the company. That night, Crit calls Phupat and confesses that Maven had blackmailed him into faking Rungroj's will. Maven also threatened him and asked him to go and live abroad if want to save his family. Hearing all this, Phupat asked Crit to bring their late father's will back to Thailand. After that, Phupat loses his mind and tries to punish Araya for what Maven has done. He forces Araya out of the home and even breaks all the photo frames of Maven and Araya. Yupin tries to stop him, but Phupat continues embarrassing Araya as she knows about changing the will too. Later, Padsha asks Phupat to divorce her and give her a share of Theva Gems as per their agreement, but Phupat refuses to give Padsha a penny. He tries to assert dominance over the servants and fires the staff at a moment when he finds the food unappetizing. Later that day, Phupat invites two businessmen, Pachara and Fedi, from their rival company, Gentle Gems, over for dinner, and asks them to purchase Theva Gems from him. At the same time, Kaimuk meets the cops as Rungroj's wife and asks them to reinvestigate Rungroj's death. She insists that the cops exhume his grave to conduct an autopsy. Also, Araya gets to know that Maven died due to the drugs in his system, as he was overdrunk at the time when he fell into the water. Later at night, Pacha again confronts Phupat about the divorce, as she claims that their marriage was also forced by Rungroj. This time, Phupat agrees to give her divorce, but he doesn't give her any stake in the company. After some time, the business people come to Phupat's house to discuss and enjoy dinner with the rival company's president. There, Phupat offers to sell his house along with the company. Phupat tells Fetchi that he was forced into the diamond business by his father. He reveals that he wants to do as he pleases with his life now that his father is no longer alive. For that, he is selling his company and the house. When they left, the business persons found the deal very appealing, as they would become the sole giant in the diamond industry after this deal, but they still suspected that something was fishy behind the motives of Phupat. Back at the house, Yupin asks Phupat not to sell the house to his father because Rungroj built it with love. Also, she claims that the servants present in the house are also part of a family that lives there. However, Phupat says that there is no family Hirea. All the servants are there because they are being paid. He even misbehaves with the old Yupin and doesn't take back his decision to sell the house. Later, in the garden, old Yupin opens her heart in front of Kaimuk and says that she has been covering all of Phupat's childhood mistakes in front of his father. But this has turned him into an arrogant person instead of molding him into a good one. Now Yupin is regretting on her actions. On the other hand, Pacha leaves the house with her stuff, and she asks Kaimuk to take care of herself. She also praises her for still standing upright after so much has happened to her. The next day, Krit shows up at the Thevasadat Paisarn family house and learns that Phupat is the only remaining member of the family living there. He shows Phupat a video of Rungroj signing his will. The video shows Rungroj naming Kaimuk as the sole heir of his assets, while Kaimuk stands beside Rungroj. Phupat is shocked to learn that Kaimuk was aware of Rungroj's will all this time, but she didn't speak up, so he wonders what her true intentions were. The following day, Phupat confronts Kaimuk as she locks the door to the Thevasadat Paisarn house. Phupat asks if Kaimuk is the one who killed Rungroj, and at this, Kaimuk starts laughing at him. The story goes back 5 years to when Kaimuk was hired as a maid by the Thevasadat Paisarn family. Pacha and Araya were conducting the interviews and asked Kaimuk and the other maids to get naked to keep them in their control. Those who abide by the orders stayed and continued working as the maids, while others were struck off from the job. Kaimuk was the one who stayed. Yupin then took her to the servants' room and also gave her the uniform. If she came late just for 2 minutes, Yupin used to reprimand her. Soon, however, Kaimuk adjusted herself to the rules of the family and became the best servant there. As the days went by, Kaimuk realized just how twisted the Thevasadat Paisarn family was. Kaimuk saw Maven getting intimidated with Caillou and also found out about Phupat's drug addiction. She also learned that her fellow maid, Dao, was being forcefully assaulted by Rungroj. She presented her interest in butterflies and moths and asked Rungroj to collect them. Seeing Kaimuk's interest in butterflyer, Rungroj got attracted to her. One night, Kaimuk tried to ask Caillou if she was being assaulted in this house. Though Caillou had just returned from the room of Maven, she didn't accept that someone was assaulting her because she also wanted to do this with herself, in the hope of some wealth. One day, Kaimuk learned that Dao had died by suicide, and she was asked to be Rungroj's servant from now on. Later, Rungroj called Kaimuk to his greenhouse, where he shot some nude pictures of her while making her lie on the ground. He then forced her to drink alcohol and also poured the liquor all over her body. Then he got intimated with her. Kaimuk, being an ordinary servant, was terrified by the incident, but eventually accepted it as her fate and continued to be physically involved with Rungroj. Over the years, Kaimuk grew closer to Rungroj and promised to give her an heir when Rungroj told her he had no hope for Phupat and Maven. That's why Rungroj decided to name Kaimuk as his heir and pledged all his assets to the successor of Kaimuk. She would eventually give birth. On the night of his birthday, Kaimuk mixed Rungroj's tea with Phupat's drug. When Phupat showed up to argue with his father, Kaimuk went to Maven's room and gave him a fake letter of termination that enraged him. So, an angry Maven went to Rungroj's room to talk to him. But Rungroj, who was still high on the drugs, hallucinated being pushed off the balcony by the butterflies as he died. Back in the present day, Phupat learns about Kaimuk's whole plan and blames her for killing his father, as well as for driving him to kill Maven. Now he knows the truth. He is going to kill Kaimuk and get his wealth back. But Kaimuk argues that Phupat did it all on his own, and gaslights him into thinking that he poisoned Rungroj, as well as killed Mavin. Kaimuk shows Phupat a video from the boat where Phupat had choked and pushed Mavin off the boat. She tells him that Jok filmed the entire incident and adds that the servants of the house were on her side and had all worked together to bring the masters of the house down for the way they treated them. Phupat gets angry and tries to strangle Kaimuk, but the servants show up and film Phupat trying to kill his late father's wife. The servants threaten to tarnish the Thevasadat Paisarn family's image, which gets Phupat to stop. A few weeks later, Phupat is seen drinking at a local bar when he sees Pacha on the news as she is being interviewed by the reporters. The news of Phupat killing Rungroj and Mavin is spread as per Kaimuk's plan, and he is ousted. Meanwhile, Pacha denies knowing anything about Phupat's crimes and moves to New York. There, she tries to contact Kita, who ignores her mother. On the other hand, Araya auditions for a new acting role as she cries remembering Shutter's death, who did not make it out alive after the heart transplant. On his way out of the bar, Phupat is stabbed and left to die by robbers. With that, the entire Thevasadat Paisarn is destroyed because of Kaimuk and the servants. Or we can say it is because of their rude behavior toward the servants. As per Rungroj's will, all of his wealth, including a 100% stake in Theva Gems, is handed over to Kaimuk. Now the whole bungalow is under the control of the servants. They are now enjoying their lives. The servants take a group picture in the house and replace the Thevasadat Paisarn family photo with a picture of all the maids and male servants. In the end, the maids are partying at the same dinner table that the Thevasadat Paisarn family once sat at. Kaimuk gets on the table and dances while the rest of the servants dance and celebrate their victory.